The show focused on delivering beneficial information on everything to do with products and services that can improve your life. This is Experts on Call on AM 650.
Sterling Fox with you on this Tuesday evening. Tony Giventu, my co-host, is the executive director of the Condominium Homeowners Association of British Columbia, otherwise known as CHOA, C-H-O-A. They have a fabulous website, choa.bc.ca. It is an outstanding website for people, particularly, and Tony, we talk to this group every time we do the show. We've been doing this for a long time, particularly if you're at that point in your life where you're contemplating a change of lifestyle. You're ready to be out of the burbs and the big house and all that yard work. The kids are gone. Why bother anymore? So why not let's downsize and move into a condo or a townhouse, get into some kind of smallish, manageable, fun place to live for the rest of the day. So we like to talk to that group as well. And your website, choa.bc.ca, is a terrific place, especially for newbies, to go and find out the basics about what it would be like to live in a strata. And Tony's rule number one, Cheryl is already smiling because she knows it. Your house is not your castle, right?
Exactly.
Elaborate, please.
Well, we talk about it on so many shows, and the question comes up, and so many misunderstandings occur because people think my home is my castle. When I move into the strata, I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I move into a townhouse. I decide I'm not going to use my garage for my cars. I plunk them out on the street, which I've probably just violated 2 bylaws for. I converted my garage into a workshop, and I'm there at 3 o'clock in the morning with my saws, my belts, my sanders, and doing the whole job, causing other bylaw violations and noise and all the kinds of issues, right?
Okay.
It really is part of the castle. You with any luck, you're the in the unit above the gate to the moat, and that's where your home is located.
And you can toss offenders out the window into the drink.
Exactly.
Let's take some calls here as we go forward with this edition of Talk About Strata here on AM 650. Catherine is on the line. Good evening, Catherine.
Hello.
Go ahead to our guest, please.
So I live in a strata condo in North Vancouver.
Okay.
And I booked my party room for my 7-year-old's birthday party in the summer. And we had 10 kids. We had some dancing for an hour in the party room. And then we moved out to the pool and had a little splash in the pool.
Sounds like fun.
It was, it was great. It was a typical 7-year-old party.
Okay.
Anyway, so then I get a fine later on for $250 from my strata council.
For what?
For excessive noise.
Oh. During the daytimes, a group of 7-year-olds make a bit of a racket at a birthday party. And this is a noise violation punishable by fine.
$250.
Holy cow.
And so I went to them and I wrote a long letter in response to all this and saying, how can you fine me for excessive noise for a 7-year-old's party that's in the party room?
Right.
And I went before them in a hearing in which I was allowed to speak for 5 minutes, and there was no Q&A, and then I left the room, and they said, sorry, we're upholding our decision, and that was the end of it. So I'm super frustrated, and I really don't know what I can do. What can I do to fight that?
Okay, now two parts to the question. Catherine, let's answer. Tony, let's answer Catherine's what can I do directly first. And then perhaps, Cheryl, you can talk about how the tribunal might administer this should it come before you. But Tony, talk to Catherine about what she can do. She's on the hook for $250.
Well, here's the challenge that the Strata Corporation has created for starters is that they cannot fine for the offense of a bylaw for any amount greater than $200.
Oh.
So the Act only permits a maximum of fine of $200 per incident with respect to bylaw fines, except for rental bylaws, which can be $500 per offense.
Okay.
But rentals are the only exemption. So for all other items, the maximum amount of the fine is $200. So if the Strata has a bylaw or has imposed a $250 fine or has a bylaw that imposes a $250 fine, they already have a problem with a bylaw that is even questionable whether it's enforceable.
Okay, Catherine, so we've already saved you $50.
Well, we don't know what the condition is, but the other standard here is that the Strata Corporation is providing for their owners a facility to be able to use during, I assume the bylaw has specific hours to it, for the party room, a facility for people to actually hold events. Well, holding event is not going to be a silent event,
Right.
Whether it's a retirement party or a birthday party for an 80-year-old, or whether it's a 7-year-old's birthday party, there is going to be some residual noise that's affected with it.
And
So,
Catherine, I assume that you had your birthday party within the open hours, available hours of the party room.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Just double checking the details here. All right,
The
Tony.
music only lasted for 45 minutes.
Okay. And what time of day was this going on?
2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, there you go. All right.
but that being said, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there could be within a few paces night shift workers who are sleeping.
True.
Right.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
So the Strata Corporation is really kind of caught in the sense that they provided a facility available to owners where owners can have parties and events. The accessibility to the pool, I assume, was part of the use of the clubhouse. So the kids were in the pool. I don't know any 7-year-olds that go into a pool that don't scream. So
I haven't met one either.
it sounds like there needs to be a discussion between yourself and the Strata Corporation or the Strata Corporation around what the reasonable enforceability of this
But
bylaw
they
is.
gave her 5 minutes. They had a discussion. According to their rules, they gave Catherine 5 minutes and told her to buzz off.
Right. So
I asked for that. I asked for what is your interpretation of excessive noise, and please,
Right.
if you won't speak to me here,
Right.
then provide it to me on paper in detail. And I've never had anything, and they wouldn't answer.
Okay.
Right. So at this point, if the Strata Corporation is not prepared to open the discussion or possibly entertain the use of a mediator to talk about this issue, we get really down now, prior to the tribunal system, we really get down right into whether you want to take this matter and dispute it in the courts, whether you want to go to small claims, whether you want to go to arbitration to dispute this. But there's two sides to bylaws with disputes. One is the monetary side, and was the bylaw applied properly? That's the first question.
Okay.
So before you get a notice of a fine, the Strata Corporation has to provide you with simply a notice of complaint, which then entitles you to a hearing to be able to challenge, ask questions, ask about the nature of the complaint, where did the complaint come from, a source, that type of information.
I've asked for that, and they said they're never going to give me that information.
Right.
Okay.
Well, they may not say the individual who filed the complaint for privacy reasons, but all the other particulars of the complaint they have an obligation to disclose to you. That's a requirement under the Act. What time the complaint was filed, the nature of the complaint, the particulars of the complaint. They have an obligation to give you all that information before they impose a fine or a penalty. Then you're entitled.
Imposed the fine first,
right?
And I'm still put it right on my bill,
right?
And they will not provide me with the details of this information, even though I know it's part of their obligation. So what do? They're not doing what they're obligated to do.
Right. So at this time in history, what we're challenging now is the way the fine was imposed, the questionability of how they made the decision, what was reasonable or not for noise.
Right.
And so now you have a few choices. Arbitration is one choice. Under the Strata Property Act, if you commence arbitration, the Strata is compelled to participate in arbitration.
There you go, Catherine.
So that's one option.
That's good to know.
Okay, so that's one option. Arbitration, though, can be costly. Right, that's one of the elements of arbitration that's a little bit of an issue. You could request to the Strata Council that they agree to mandatory mediation, that we find a mediator to help us through this, and see if there's some solution to come out of this.
Is that less expensive than arbitration?
It's much less expensive because it's generally around a focused period of time. You can have, as Cheryl just passed me a great note, just have your lawyer write them a letter advising them the errors that they did conducted in the processing of the fines.
I'm not
and the
paying a
penalties.
fine because it wasn't properly levied, and there's a lot of suspicious elements to it in the first place.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then failing that, you could actually commence an action in small claims court over this as well. Provincial court is a jurisdiction where you're going to challenge the value of the fine and the applicability of the fine. Now, the why you say it's quirky for bylaws for two sides. The enforceability of a bylaw is not something that's generally dealt with in the jurisdiction of provincial court. Whether the bylaw is enforceable and complies with the law is generally an item that's dealt with at Supreme Court.
Okay.
And so it's a much more costly venture to get into a Supreme Court action around the enforceability.
But in the short
of
term,
bylaw.
for Catherine's immediate ability to deal with this matter, either arbitration or mediation would be the recommended approaches, mediation being the less expensive of those options.
Mediation, arbitration, or small claims.
Catherine, are we helping you out here at all?
Yeah, this is really good information, and I just need to know, for arbitration, who do I contact for that?
You can go to the CHOA website.
Right.
And under the Strata Property Act forms, where it says legislation on the website, when you open up the forms, you'll see a Form L, which is commencing arbitration against the Strata Corporation. And if you require some assistance, one of our staff at our office will be happy to help you with that.
Okay, and
That
Catherine,
is fantastic. Yeah.
I'm glad you called, and I'm glad we're able to sort of move this thing along in your life a little bit, because this is where this whole thing, and Cheryl is nodding vigorously here, because this is where a lot of this stuff just bogs right down unnecessarily. So CHOA, C-H-O-A, Catherine, .bc.ca is the Condominium Homeowners Association website that Tony's recommended to you, and that's where you start, okay?
Got it. CHOA.bc.ca.
There you go.
That's fantastic. I never knew that you existed, so it's really good to know.
It's a
Thank
pleasure to
you.
have you on the program. You're quite welcome. Cheryl, how might this case be administered by the tribunal a year from now if Catherine calls up with the same quandary?
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of case that we anticipate we're going to get. And what a year from now, when the tribunal is open, what Catherine would be able to do is she'd be able to go online and get information, get the same kind of information that Tony just gave her.
Right.
A, that you can't be fined more than $200.
Right.
B, that they're supposed to give you this complaint or this particulars of your complaint before they levy the fine, all this kind of stuff. So then she's armed with that information.
And she could have gone online right after the meeting, gone right upstairs
Exactly.
to the computer, sat down and go, wait a second, this just really doesn't pass the smell test.
Right. So she would go online, she would get that kind of information. And then what she would do is she would invite the Strata Corporation to negotiate a resolution to this dispute online.
Right.
And they could choose not to participate or to participate. And if they don't participate, then she could start an application to the Civil Resolution Tribunal.
All right.
And she would do this online, and the platform will help her to do that. So
Right.
she'll populate the information, and
Right.
it'll go forward. The tribunal will receive it. Because it's against a Strata Corporation, they have to participate at this point.
Uh-huh.
They can't choose not to.
They can't give her 5 minutes and tell her to buzz
No,
off.
so then the tribunal will open the file, start a proceeding, and invite the parties to participate in a facilitative mediation kind of process
Uh-huh.
in the online environment. And what would happen is we would have somebody who is an expert in strata law, like Tony, to help the parties try and work this out and come to a resolution. And that resolution can be whatever they think is appropriate in the circumstances. But more importantly, in a case like this, I think what would be really helpful is if they could educate the Strata Corporation and the owners to figure out a way going forward to avoid these kinds of disputes.
Right.
So maybe, when somebody asks to use the party room, they know exactly what the rules are around that.
Right.
They know what the expectations are around noise, and that they aren't being given the right to use the party room and not understanding what the expectations are. And when somebody or the Strata Corporation, when they know it's being used for a 7-year-old birthday party, maybe they can put up notices in the building and say, hey, on Sunday afternoon, guess what? There's going to be a 7-year-old birthday party from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Be warned.
Right.
And so maybe there's things that the community can do going forward to then help not have these disputes reoccur.
Tony, you wanted to jump in here? We need to take a break, but you look like you just got to add something onto that.
Well, I think one of the elements that people forget when they move into a strata is that if you move into a strata, there's going to be noise. Right?
Yes.
It's going to be part of life. And if you move into a family strata where you have children and you have a swimming pool and you have party rooms and you have playgrounds, there's going to be more noise.
Yes.
And there's going to be substantially more noise during the day. And it's going to happen between 3 and 6 o'clock after school during the week.
Right.
And that's going to be a normal part of the life of the strata corporation.
It's like moving into a subdivision near the airport and then finding your way to complain about the noise of the aircraft overhead. Gosh, what were you thinking in the first place?
Well, and every one of these actions is going to have some sort of resulting action, right? There is a reaction. We allow for a party room with a swimming pool and families and kids can use it. The logical implication of that is there's going to be noise.
Right.
There's no way to avoid 7-year-olds from jumping into a swimming pool and not scream.
Right.
That is going to
Where's
happen.
the fun?
Right. That's going to happen. And so, it's at the same token, the Strata Council are probably thinking about, the people in the building who are night shift workers or, who have just got off of a 12-hour flight.
And that's their job.
And they have a disruption at the same time.
Right.
So there's the fair amount of, as I say, consideration that has to be exercised in a development when you're dealing with multifamily residences.
This is Key Pacific's Talk About Strata on AM 650. Our lines are open. Catherine, thank you for your call. Delighted to be able to help her a little bit, move this whole file along in her life a little bit. How annoying can this be for some people? Huh? My goodness. 280-0650 with the obligatory 604 up front in Vancouver and area. From out of town, it's 1-877-280-0650. Lots more Talk About Strata to come here on AM 650.
Delivering relevant and beneficial consumer information. This is Experts on Call. And there's more still ahead on AM 650.